Then I would like to immediately make the step towards the next item on our conference agenda. That's our first interactive roundtable on the European study experience and the future of European higher education. A session that will be chaired by Professor Kornelia Freitag from the University of Bochum, and one of the driving forces also behind the development and now implementation of UNIC. Kornelia, can I give you the floor for roundtable number 1?
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you very much to all the speakers and their input. And yeah, it's great to see everybody again here for this roundtable, which is pretty square in Zoom, but I think we'll make it do. Yeah, I would like to introduce the panelists. First, so we have Professor Dr. Damir Boras, Rector of the University of Zagreb, Professor Dr. Umran İnan, Rector of Koç University, Professor Dr. Axel Schölmerich, Rector of Ruhr University Bochum, and Robert Queckenberg, student of Ruhr University Bochum and another representative of the UNIC student board. Dear audience, thank you for joining us today. There is Q&A function below, and if you have questions, please feel free to type them in, and I hope we will be able to take at least 1 or 2 of them. But let's start directly with the first question, and I would like to address Umran, that is rector from Koç University here, and ask him, so what is the importance of UNIC for your university? Why did you decide to co-found UNIC? Would you please unmute yourself?
Mute myself?
Yeah. Yep.
I realize I need to unmute myself. Thank you very much, Cornelia. I'm very pleased to be here with yourself and all the other colleagues. Yes, we were very excited in participating in the formation of UNIC, and I think there are several reasons for this. Koç University is a premium research university in Turkey, and it's ranked basically the highest in Turkey in the QS rankings or Times Higher Education or anything else you need to look at. But one of our goals that we are still falling short in is internationalization. So we have only 7 to 8% of our student body international, undergraduate student body. So we would like to expand that to 10s and 20% levels. Our PhD programs are pretty international because of the 650 PhD students that we have, about 1/3 are international. So I think that's already something we have achieved. But internationalization is a great motivation. Of course, the great city of Istanbul is a fantastic motivation when there's anything that has to do with cities, because it probably goes to millennia back in time and crosses continents and it's spread so much right now that it's, I think, up at around 16 to 18 million people, which is almost the size of California. Well, maybe not, but but it's there, larger than some of the European countries. Super diversity is something that attracts us. I think we should mention and be proud of the fact that at my university there are 7 schools and therefore 7 deans, and of the 7 deans, 4 are women. At my university we have 55% of students are women, and faculty members, 40% of the faculty members across the university are women. So I think we are very much into diversity. We are very interested in diversity. And we are also interested in diversity in terms of economic opportunity. Because in a place like Turkey, as those of you who know Turkey may realize already. It's a large country. It's as large as France or as large as Germany. It's very diverse, and there's a huge difference between the East and the West and the South and the North in terms of investments and income and opportunities. And university education is centralized in Turkey. The only way to get into a university in Turkey is through the central exam that's taken by 2 million people, 2 million plus actually. It'll happen on the 26th of June, for example. And this is important because it prevents favoritism and has a seemingly presentation of an equal opportunity. But the high schools are so incredibly diverse that it really, the ones coming from the disadvantaged high schools are starting a mile or two back in this same exam that they take. So we also have done something very unique in Turkey that has been going on for the last 10 years now. We have this so-called Anatolian Scholarship Program, where we open opportunities to people who are coming from the depths of Anatolia, really villages from families where you might have 6 or 7 or 8 children, well below minimum wage income, and in the mountains and villages, but they are very bright people. And we find ways with the help of 270 industrial entities, companies, to bring these students to my university by co-funding them. We provide 1/3, they provide 2/3. That way, we don't need to do this because there's people lined up to come to my university, even if I just sat in my chair and never get up. But we work very hard to fundraise to provide this diversity in our campus. So the diversity, super diversity is very important for us. Internationalization and the city of Istanbul, which we love so dearly.
Thank you very much. And of course, this is a discussion. So if one of the other panelists want to come in here, please feel free, just wave into the camera. That's easiest for me, because I know that, for instance, at Bochum, internationalization definitely was also one of the reasons why we joined. And yeah, so I don't know whether anybody would want to say something with regard to this, or I would also like to hear from others. Maybe Axel, you could say something about the ways in which you think UNIC would be developing, like in 10 or 20 years from now.
Yeah, I've thought about 20 years from now, and I'm certainly hoping that I'm going to be 70 years old next year. So 20 years from then, I'll be hoping to hop around in an exoskeleton or a robo suit, rather than doing my shopping with one of those, broomsticks with wheels on at the bottom. But education, the system of education, is going through dramatic change, and it has been doing that for the last year and a half to everybody's knowledge. It has changed not so dramatically in the past. And actually, one reason higher education is such an important institution is that it's the only institution, aside from the institutions of church, that has such a long cultural tradition. And so there are always these two forces, the innovation on one side, driven by science and the advantages that are derived by better understanding the world on the one side, and sort of an institutionalized tradition, which also has tended in the past to be non-inclusive, to be exclusive, to be elitist. Now, these two forces somehow have to be brought into balance. And I think that UNIC is one of the ways where we, as post-industrial cities, see ourselves not necessarily just as a nest or a location with particular challenges, which undoubtedly we have, but we also see ourselves as a little bit ahead of the rest in time. Actually, when we became industrialized cities, we were ahead of the rest. And now again, we're ahead of the rest because we're post-industrial. We're turning ourselves into something new. And we're doing this by using scientific methods. And this is a dramatic difference to those forms of innovation that we had in the past, which were mainly driven by economic interest, by putting sort of inventions into practice, the railroad, the steel production, and so forth. And so we do have a culture of innovation in our regions. And this is something really interesting to look across different types of post-industrial cities within the European University network. The point is, we have to put this culture of innovation in a situation where we can provide solutions for the big questions of our times. For example, access to high quality education, climate change, fair work environments, and many other things. We will have to install that spirit in the next generation, or I should rather say we should allow the next generation to install that spirit in themselves, because this is not something you pour into a person's head, but it rises from being challenged. It rises from being in a situation where you have the feeling that you have agency, that you can do something, that you can provide solutions, that you can identify problems. And so this is something which I think the UNIC can provide in a really broad way, rather than if we had focused on a specific scientific field or on a specific technology and sort of gathered around this, which is what other European universities have done. I think we really have the better approach. And finally, if I think about 10 or 20 years from now, maybe 20, I would actually love to see our European university to include a member from the United Kingdom after rejoining the European Union, of course. This is something we have to think about extensions anyhow, but I think that would be actually great to be so convincing in what we do, that this alone would be sufficient for the population of the United Kingdom to vote to rejoin the European Union, just in order to be able to become a member of the European Union. Our students will certainly not only maintain their regional affiliation and remain their regional identity, and we want our students to be alumni from Ruhr University. This is important for us. It's important for our future. But we also want them to be aware of the fact that they also a part of a European university, and that they then become productive and helpful citizens of the Europe that we're all trying to build together. And with that, I think we're kind of short. I could talk for a little longer, but I think
we could also include someone else.
To Kornelia to moderate the discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this vision. Well, I'm not quite sure about 20 years and the UK, but let's see. But you have also made it very clear that the next generation is basically the one which we are working for, and which has to fulfill the visions that we have. So let's include the next generation. Let's turn to Robert and ask him what he sees, he as himself, but also as a representative of the student board and of the university's students, as the biggest promise, but also the biggest challenge for European universities. So what do you think we need to focus on most?
Well, in a way, of course, Rabia spoke a bit about this earlier, but I want to highlight a few other points, and it's actually quite nice to follow up on Axel here, who raised some very interesting points. I think also going into that direction. I think my main argument is that the one that Axel actually made at the very beginning. I think universities have never faced such a transformative period ever before as institutions. And in general, our society probably has never faced a transformative period as this one. I think many of the events of the past year alone, none of us could actually foresee, especially how quickly they unfolded and how much they impacted our institutions and the way we normally go about studying, teaching, learning, and all of this, and many other things, of course. But it's not just digitization. I think that we're facing so many challenges and upheavals in society in the upcoming years that it's very hard to predict actually what the future will look like in 20 years. And maybe even the current students are not really the ones, of course, that should answer these questions, but we're the only ones who are close enough to the future in a way. And to include a personal note, I just became a father of a little child very recently. So that's actually one thing that has made me think more about the future than I already do, like not just the immediate future of myself, but also the future of my little child, which is, of course, going to live in this environment in 20 years' time and hopefully going to a unique university at that time. And I think the main challenge really is that I think the way we live and work is going to be fundamentally different in 20 years' time than it is today, even still. I think we will face a future in which we need to be much more independent. We need to be much more resilient when it comes to sudden changes. And this means that our universities need to be places where students can practice these kinds of skills for life, where they can learn to become, as Axel said, active agents in their education, and where they can also be involved, and this is something where I think UNIC is going very much in the right direction, involved with actual people who are working in the fields that these students want to go into. So in the cities, work on actual problems, trying to solve them while they're still students, and not only being sort of fed education as was the model in the past, but actively shape education as it goes along. And this is, I think, the way we can fulfill the promise, I think, of what lies ahead, rather than succumb to the challenges. And also for university, I think, to stay relevant as institutions, because in the future, maybe students will find other institutions that provide them with better means for facing the future, and universities need to be up to the challenge.
Thank you very much. You've really covered a broad territory, and very, very clearly much more could be said, but I'm sure that the challenge of giving students more independence and making them more resilient, but at the same time also sheltering them in the university environment and help them and give them the possibility to try themselves out, to make a mistake without being shattered, is also very, very important. And so, yeah, let's make UNIC better and be a good haven, a safe haven, but also a good preparation for the world outside, for your kid and all the other kids around. So let me turn to Damir Boras and ask him what he thinks. Are we bringing something totally new to higher education? Or and so are the values that we develop, the methods that we develop, meant to replace traditional methods? Or is our work supposed to complement what is already there, what already exists? Damir, what do you think?
Okay, these are in fact two questions, yes. And I would say I can briefly ask and respond to the first one. Yes, UNIC and we are bringing new knowledge outlook, dimensions, and evidence to the European higher education area. And by doing so, we are setting a ground for new policies, directions in the near future. And of course, we are facing a multitude of challenges that are related either to the disruptive innovation cycles or socio-economic related changes, and positioning and aligning of our institutions, students, and new teaching and new research methods accordingly for some time already. And I need to say, COVID-19 pandemic and for the Zagreb University, a huge earthquakes, it forced us to take over new methods in only 7 days. For me, that was easy because I'm an expert in distance learning and so on. It happened to be, so I could organize that. But after a year and almost 4 months of experiences in that sense, we have a lot of advantages and a lot of disadvantages. And when we speak, let's say, about second, questions, shall we develop new methods or complement them? I would say we can supplement them, not supplant them. Yes, that is the most important. But people are resisting changes. You know, all professors like me don't want to change even the program they are using for years. You know, but as I'm an information scientist, it was easy for me. But for others, not so. So we have, let's say, some sort of generation gap. You know, but with time and let's say perseverance, we will change that. So the ambition of UNIC shall be to replace traditional methods long term, but not abandon classical methods at all. That would be, I think, a message for these two questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think everybody will agree, especially after having tried out and being forced into complete distance learning for more than a year. We all feel that some traditional sitting together and interacting and throwing questions and answers around and turning them around, sitting around a round table, a real round table, and not speaking via Zoom would really be something else, again, is also necessary. And that is, of course, also a question that we have to deal with in UNIC, because in UNIC, we also have to rely on distance learning, because obviously given also ecology, we wouldn't want to jet around all the time between the 8 places and spaces. On the other hand, that is still important, and some good tradition to save makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Can I add just a little comment on that? As for teaching methods, city laboratories, we have them in UNIC projects, and I need to say that at the University of Zagreb we have a nice university computing center. The acronym for it in Croatian is SRCE, that means heart, and they are already doing, and they had they have now a very, very important and a huge task, but they will do that. So I need that we are able to satisfy the needs of our unique project, and we will stay. I need to say unique, you know.
Yes, definitely. We love this play on words. We have only 8 more minutes left, and so I would ask each of the panelists to make a quick, 2-minute statement with regard what they think concerning the European study experience, the future of European higher education, they think would be something they want to give us all to remember and think about. And I will just go in the order of appearance on my screen, and I start with Robert. So what message would you have?
Well, apart from what I already tried to highlight, that I think empowering students is a key task for the future, much more so than it has been done already in the past. I would also highlight that specifically in UNIC, and we're working really hard on this. I know this because I am involved in this as a student board representative, also behind the scenes, is to make sure that we really fulfill this promise of virtual and physical mobility and allow students within our UNIC universities much more access to quality education. Because that's of course the great thing for students there in UNIC. You suddenly have so many more options on your table to attend classes, but not only that, to be part of an international community of students and experience this kind of mobility, especially for those kinds of students who in the past were not able to do this. So I think we're going very much in the right direction, but we have a lot of work to do.
Definitely, I totally agree. Umran, what do you want to tell us?
Well, okay. I think I spent a lot of time at Stanford University before coming to Koç. So I have a unique perspective that I can look at European universities, including many here. I think European universities are too much bound and shackled by bureaucracy and rules and regulations. I would like the students to be governed without governing, the faculty to be governed without governing. I would like all of us to think in the following terms. You hire the best people, you do the best you can to bring the best students to your campus. And then as university administrators, you get out of their way. Many of the time we are on their way with our old rules and regulations. We don't know what's good for them. They know better. They know what is good for them better than we know what's good for them. So I think this revolutionary approach requires cleansing the table and then rethinking it. Unfortunately, when I interact with universities in Europe, Germany, France, many other places, I just get very discouraged sometimes because they're shackled with tradition, shackled with rules and regulations. They have a way of doing things. There's a new petition that comes to do it in some other way. They reject it just because they have never done it before. This is the kind of thing that really holds Europe back, in my opinion, with respect to because what we need, as Axel says, a culture of innovation, but we also need a culture of liberation from bureaucracy, liberation from rules and regulations, liberation from the asphalts and the roads that have been dictated from the top down. Let it come from the bottom up. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was in a true American fashion, that government is best that governs least. Very old slogan, we know. But of course, we also know that and have already heard that in education, some tradition is also something not to lose, which was what Damir just reminded us of. But you are, of course, talking about administration, and I think we all share your feelings about that. Damir, what would you like to tell us?
As I mentioned before, structural differences between our university could be a challenge for us, but we need to know them, to acknowledge them, and to identify them. And this is an important element for mutual learning and exchange process. And that is what I can say. The university partners that are part of UNIC are here for a reason. We are all striving towards becoming higher education area excellence hubs by learning from each other and setting the grounds for the future by pursuing the common agenda. But what Umran also, let's say, have reminded me, we challenge in Europe with the degradation of the level of communication, even in verbalization, in methods and so on. So our goal will be also to raise, to educate, to form our students to communicate among themselves and to start critical mining on the critical verbalization on the academic way, and that's particularly important for post-industrial city to become responsible citizens. And that is, but for that you need knowledge and the skills. So it's our goal to allow them so that can approach those skills and learn the skills. That is all. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I think that was also part of what was already said before by some of the other speakers, that we want to educate, but we want to educate people to think themselves and to be critical and to think and to be knowledge-based, of course. And that would probably also, to come back to what Robert said, would also be something that universities can very well supply and make them probably different from other places where you can get a little bit of knowledge, but that is not so close to the newest research. And so we do have something to work with, which makes us different. Axel, you've got the last word here.
Yeah, it's only about a minute. So I want to tie back with what Ed said in his introduction. The super diversity aspect. I think this is a very, very important point of UNIC. And we all agree that diversity can enhance creativity and opportunities for success. Now, diversity has requirements if it's meant to have a positive impact. Now, human happiness pretty much depends on a certain fit between environment and individual. Now, individuals are very diverse, and this is the whole approach for inclusiveness. There are so many different forms and so many different factors that can play a role. Intersectionality multiplies the potential combinations. We see inclusivity as a human right. It makes sense to allow talent to develop in whatever form that may take. And we may have to look much more intensively in the future towards forms of disadvantages of people in terms of their psychological state, of their ability to feel emotions, of their ability to hook up with their environment. And this is something where I think a broad system of exchange, of access to other people's biographies, to people, even if only on screen and only in flipped classrooms, will actually make a big contribution. And so I'm very eager to hear what the Super Diversity Group this afternoon will discuss in detail. I think this is a very important part of UNIC, and I wanted to make that as my last comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. I think sensitivity, open-mindedness, critical thinking, thinking of citizens who think and act as citizens. These are all values that we will work hard to make come true for our students and the next generations in UNIC. Thanks to panelists. Thank you for listening. And back to Peter, I guess.
Yes, thank you all. That was a wonderful roundtable. Gives a lot of food for thought for UNIC, for the development of UNIC, the challenges, the ambitions. So that is that's very welcome. That has been very welcome. Thank you so much.